Welcome to this deep dive. And today we're going to be looking into something pretty interesting. It's a fan theory about Remus Lupin from Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Remus Lupin.
Yeah.
So this theory suggests that he might actually be a metaphor for the HIV/AIDS experience.
Wow.
Now, I know that sounds like a pretty heavy topic
Yeah.
to connect with a children's book, but stick with us.
Yeah.
Because it's really thought-provoking.
For sure.
So we found this theory online. It was like a fan-created document that was analyzing this idea. And yeah, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, and what I think is so interesting about this is that it's not like J.K. Rowling came out and said, this is what I meant.
Yeah.
It's more like fans have noticed these parallels between how werewolves are treated in the wizarding world and how people with HIV/AIDS were treated in the real world, especially back in the late 20th century.
Yeah, I have to admit, when I first heard about this theory, I was like, wait, what? But then the more I thought about it, the more I started to see the connections. You know, like how Lupin's lycanthropy is this huge secret that he has to hide. It's not just a medical condition. It's something he's, like, ashamed of.
Yeah, and that shame was very real for people with HIV/AIDS during that time. I mean, there was so much fear and misinformation surrounding the disease.
Yeah.
People were terrified of losing their jobs, their families, even their homes if anyone found out.
Oh, absolutely. And the theory even points out that Lupin has a really hard time finding and keeping a job.
Yeah.
Just like many individuals with HIV/AIDS did.
Totally.
Like, it's not explicitly stated in the books, but
Yeah.
you could definitely interpret it as him being let go or not even considered for jobs once people find out about his condition.
Exactly. It's like this unspoken barrier.
Yeah.
And if we look at the bigger picture, both lycanthropy and HIV/AIDS were seen as these kind of curses, you know, these conditions that separated you from society and made you other.
It's like you weren't just sick, you were dangerous or contaminated, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like something to be feared and avoided.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder if Rowling was tapping into those very real anxieties about demise and otherness that were so prevalent back then.
Oh, for sure.
You know, that feeling of being fundamentally different and separated from normal people.
Yeah.
I bet that resonated with a lot of readers.
Absolutely. Especially those who already felt like outsiders.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's one of the reasons why this theory is so compelling.
It is.
It takes something seemingly simple, like a werewolf in a fantasy world, and connects it to this really complex social issue.
Yeah, and in a way, it's like Lupin's story becomes this way for us to think about, you know, these really difficult things like fear and isolation and prejudice, you know, that are so often directed at marginalized groups.
Yeah.
Even if it's not, like, explicitly stated in the text.
Right, like a hidden layer of meaning.
Yeah.
Just waiting to be discovered.
Okay, so I'm curious, when you first encountered this theory, was there a specific detail or parallel that really struck you?
You know, for me, it was how the theory connected Lupin's monthly transformations to the unpredictable nature of HIV/AIDS, especially before effective treatments were available.
Right.
Like, you never knew for sure how or when his symptoms would manifest. And that uncertainty really mirrors the experiences of a lot of people living with HIV/AIDS.
You're so right. It wasn't just like, oh, take a potion and everything's fine.
Yeah.
There was always that fear and unpredictability.
Exactly, like in real life.
Yeah, and I think the theory captures that really well.
And we can't forget how those transformations actually physically changed Lupin, just like HIV/AIDS could have physical effects on people.
Yeah.
The way they were both perceived as making someone monstrous really adds to that whole idea of otherness we were talking about.
Well, that's such a good point.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about being sick. It was about how that sickness transformed you in the eyes of others. You know, it made you something to be feared and rejected.
Right.
And I think that's such a powerful image that a lot of people can relate to, even if it's in a fictional context.
Definitely.
So it's like, this theory isn't just about Lupin's individual story. It's about using his character to examine these broader societal attitudes towards illness and difference and people who don't fit in.
Absolutely.
It's using fiction to look at the real world.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful.
For sure.
So, yeah, thinking about Lupin's transformations makes me think about how much of his life was spent trying to manage them, not necessarily cure them.
Right.
It's not like there was a spell to just make him not a werewolf anymore.
Exactly.
It's all about finding ways to cope.
That's a really good point, and it actually connects to another parallel the theory brings up, the Wolfsbane potion.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't a cure, but it helped Lupin stay human during his transformations.
Right.
So it gave him a way to control his condition.
So essentially the theory suggests that this Wolfsbane potion could be like a metaphor for HIV/AIDS medication.
Right, just like Wolfsbane. Those medications didn't cure HIV/AIDS.
Right.
But they allowed people to live longer, healthier lives.
Yeah.
They turned HIV/AIDS from a death sentence into something manageable.
Yeah. It's a really interesting connection.
It is.
It makes you think about how medical advancements don't just affect physical health, but also social acceptance.
Oh, totally.
Like, would people have been less afraid of Lupin if there was a cure for lycanthropy?
Yeah.
Would people with HIV/AIDS have faced less discrimination if there was a cure right from the beginning?
That's a really complex question.
It is.
But it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah.
The theory doesn't give us any easy answers, but it makes you think about how fear and misunderstanding lead to stigma and prejudice.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of stigma, let's talk about Lupin's relationships.
Okay.
Or I guess lack thereof for a long time.
Right.
He always seemed so isolated. Like he didn't think he deserved love or connection.
And that feeling of isolation was shared by a lot of individuals with HIV/AIDS. You know, they were often rejected by their families and communities, treated like outcasts as if their condition made them unworthy of love and belonging.
It's really sad. And you see that in how Lupin pushes Tonks away at first.
Yeah.
Even though he clearly loves her.
He does.
He believes his condition makes him a danger to her.
Right.
Like he's a burden.
That feeling of being unworthy or a danger to the people you care about is a huge weight to carry.
Absolutely.
And it shows the emotional toll that stigma can have on people.
It does. It makes you think, though, how much of Lupin's isolation was his own choice?
Right.
Was he just afraid of rejection? Or was he trying to protect others from the danger of being associated with him?
Yeah.
Or maybe it was both.
Probably a little bit of both.
Right.
It's like how in the real world, the stigma around werewolves in the wizarding world probably caused this mix of fear and prejudice and internalized shame that made it almost impossible for Lupin to have real connections with people.
And that's where this theory goes beyond just being a fun fan interpretation, right?
Exactly.
It makes us look at these characters and their struggles in a different way, a way that reflects real-world issues of stigma and discrimination and the struggle for acceptance.
It's not about saying that Rowling definitely intended this specific metaphor.
Right.
It's more about recognizing how the parallels between Lupin's experience and the experiences of people with HIV/AIDS can help us talk about important things.
Right.
Like how we treat people who are different from us. People who are pushed aside and judged for things they can't control.
It's like this theory opens a door to a deeper understanding of the book itself.
Yeah.
And the social problems it might be reflecting.
And it really makes you wonder.
It does.
What other parts of the Harry Potter universe might have deeper meanings? Like, could there be other metaphors or social commentary woven into the story?
It's a fascinating idea.
It is.
It makes me want to reread the whole series with this new perspective. This awareness of the potential for a deeper meaning.
And I think that's one of the best things about exploring these kinds of theories. They don't just give us a new way to look at a story.
Right.
They invite us to think about it on a whole new level.
Yeah.
To question what we thought we knew.
Yeah.
And find hidden depths we might have missed before.
It's like a treasure hunt for meaning.
It is.
Where the real treasure is understanding ourselves and the world better.
Exactly.
And that, to me, is the real magic of storytelling. You know, it's really crazy how just one fan theory can totally change the way you see a story. Like, I thought I knew Harry Potter.
Right.
But this whole idea about Remus Lupin as a metaphor for the HIV/AIDS experience has just given me a completely different perspective.
I think that's what literature does so well. It reflects all these societal anxieties and prejudices and even our hopes for the future.
Right.
And sometimes we need a fresh perspective to really see those reflections.
For sure. And this theory about Lupin has definitely done that.
It has.
It's made me think about all those times where I felt like I didn't belong, like a total outsider.
Yeah.
And now Lupin struggles with being isolated and afraid of rejection.
Yeah.
They feel so much more real to me, so much more relatable.
It reminds us that even in this world of magic and wonder, we all share these basic human experiences.
Right.
Fear, loneliness, the desire to be accepted.
Absolutely.
And by exploring these themes through fantasy Rowling, might have been able to reach a much wider audience.
That's true.
And plant these seeds of empathy and understanding in readers who might not have thought about these issues otherwise.
That's such a good point. It's like she's using these familiar elements of fantasy,
Right.
like werewolves and potions and magical creatures, to slip in these really important messages about how we treat each other and how we handle differences.
For sure.
And how we face our own fears.
Exactly. And it makes you think what other hidden meanings might be in the stories we love.
Right.
What other characters are dealing with real-world problems?
Yeah.
What other metaphors are waiting to be discovered?
If we just look a little closer.
Exactly.
That's the challenge I think we can all take away from this.
Yeah.
To look at the stories we love, whether it's books or movies or TV, with a sense of curiosity.
Right.
To ask what those stories are saying about the world around us. And maybe even find ourselves reflected in the characters.
I love that.
Me too. I think that's the true magic of storytelling.
Absolutely. The power to connect us and make us feel seen.
Yeah.
Even when the stories are set in faraway worlds.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Harry Potter and this theory about Remus Lupin, we want to leave you with this one thought. Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Yeah, keep questioning.
Keep searching for those hidden layers of meaning in the stories that speak to you.
You never know what you might find.
And remember, the best stories are the ones that challenge us.
Make us think.
And leave us with more questions than answers.
Because that's where the real magic happens.
Exactly.
In that space of wonder and curiosity.
The magic comes alive.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep diving.